Hey, what's going on, guys? It is your boy Wally J. I'm here because I wanted to give you guys what I have learned thus far in Predecessor playing the Offlane role. Give you guys some history or maybe some background on me. I've been playing Pred pretty much since it dropped. I did play Paragon. I had about 1,500 hours in that. I didn't really play any other MOBA. In Paragon, I did play Offlane, but that was a very different, I think, time. That was a very different feel for the Offlane because it was a 2v1 lane at the time. Pred actually gave me a strong dose of what an actual offlane looks like, and the fact that it is a 1v1 lane, not the 2v1 mechanic that was happening before, where a lot of times, hey, at the beginning of the game, I just kind of have to concede my lane. I know I'm going to get pushed in. I know I'm going to have to deal with a lot back on Paragon, and you played around that, where now you could actually play for your lead. And that just causes a totally different dynamic that I was not used to. So it wasn't until I actually played Predecessor competitive and played in the PCC in the group stages where I actually started to see, okay, cool, there's a lot more to this role than just, hey, let's box it out, right? And for a long time, I thought I was a good player. Let's just say there are a lot of things for me to learn, and I want to help dive into them here and be able to help give you guys some quick knowledge, right, on how to be successful in the offlane and ultimately help you guys succeed moving forward. So first thing I'll discuss on my offlane guide for new beginners, people coming into Pred for the first time, is best way I can describe matchups is it's almost like rock, paper, scissors. It's two characters, run those two characters, never run mirrors. In offlane, there is no reason to ever mirror. You are learning your matchup, right? And you want to learn the matchup with every single character that you come in contact with, because the more matchups you are aware of, the more that you win. You know when you win, you know how you win, and also in the losing matchups, your win conditions, right? So you understand that, hey, maybe this character rolls me in the first 5 levels, but as soon as level 6 hits, guess what? Now I'm in a position to actually fight this individual. Maybe now we're at a 50-50, and this way you actually know, hey, how do I play this lane? Do I play it super aggressive because I win early? Do I play a little bit more passive until I get my item spikes and I'm able to move correctly? But yeah, in terms of hero matchups, offlane, especially as beginners, I would just say choose 2 characters, let them be a little bit different, so that you get that. Not only do you get a feeling for how to play different types of characters, but you'll also understand and start to get more familiar with more and more matchups. And I only say 2 because, like I said, when you're playing rock, paper, scissors, you really only ever need 2 moves, right? If I got rock, I can always beat scissors, and if I got a paper, I can always beat my rock, if somebody decides to go that way. But pretty much I always have a win con when in one which way, where maybe my lane is a little bit easier. So my next topic I want to discuss is wave management. And for those who are very, very new to MOBAs, or maybe have never even gotten talked to about what it looks like for wave management and just what does that mean, right? So as you guys already know, in all of the lanes, there are minions that look to crash, and they will meet and ultimately duke it out, scrap it out. And what are they there for? They are ultimately there so that they can get into towers, inhibs, into core, so that they can win the game. That is their 100% pathing. Now, how do we manipulate those waves in our favor is the question, because these are also the waves that are giving us our gold and our XP, especially as laners. Let's talk about the 3 lane states. I'll just kind of go through them in progression from weakest to strongest. And hopefully you'll be able to follow these out, and I will try to give you some good examples up here on the screen. Now, the first one is a fast push. Fast pushes are exactly what you hear. Hey, destroying the melee minions creates a fast push. Typically with the fast push, you're destroying as much as possible, being able to push that in quickly and essentially be able to rotate out, whether that be a back, whether that be you see a fight happening on the map, whether that be you killed your laner and now you need to look to reset, or you can now have the opportunity to invade because you have enough resources. Whatever it may look like, I think the biggest point in fast pushing is, hey, I have something in which I need to rotate to, I have somewhere to go, I have something I can get to get stronger, via backing. So I'm looking to get myself off the map, as quickly as possible, or I should say I'm looking to get myself out of my lane as quickly as possible, to either help out my team or go get big for myself. The second is a freeze. And typically, I think a lot of people feel like freezes are the strongest of the lane states, but I'll get to why I feel like slows are definitely a lot stronger. But what a freeze does, kind of like I was saying, is you basically have it where the lane state gets frozen at a certain point in your lane. So, for instance, at minute 25, you notice that your minion waves meet in the middle. Essentially, they are stuck right there, frozen, if you may say, until you have some more influence, or until minion waves end up pushing it in a certain direction. Make it so a wave can stay in the same spot for a very, very long time, and this can be super beneficial because it allows you to put yourself in a position that's always safe. Right, so in offlane, a big thing that you can do is if you're able to freeze a tower at your at your tower line very early on in the game, not only are you denying your enemy golden experience, you're also making yourself very, very hard to gank. So it's usually a very, very safe thing to do. The reason I don't feel like it's that strong is because you don't have any minion wave advantage. You literally actually make it so that your minion wave is always at a disadvantage, so that you essentially you're not going to be getting anything in terms of pressure under a tower, or really just pressure in your lane. Right, it may feel really bad for the enemy offlaner because they can't actually step up, but that's a little bit different. But I would say typically freezing, I don't really want to freeze unless it's pretty early on in the game. If I'm looking to freeze after 15 minutes, it's probably not a good idea, right? If I'm not looking to push into something, or I'm not looking to rotate to a fight at 15 minutes, I'm not probably doing what I need to be doing there. So that's why I don't feel like freezing is super strong, because it really only happens in the very beginnings of games, where I think it's the most beneficial, and it tends to drop off in value. But that being said, if you are able to get one, if you are able to generate yourself a lead from here, it makes it very hard, especially in off lane, to be able to essentially catch back up on that person's snowball, and it really hurts to kind of stop that bleeding, especially if you do not help from your jungler. Typically how you'll want to break a freeze if you are on the other end is you will probably need help from a jungle, especially if you're weaker than the other person, or you can try to know where that jungle, know where the enemy jungler is, so you're not caught out trying to blow it up underneath their tower line. And typically you want to do that when you do have the minion wave advantage. So typically when your first wave comes up, or your second wave comes up to that freeze, you'll probably have the most amount of minions that you could have, and that's probably that time to just blow up that wave. You kind of dip out. Point is, you want to blow up that wave and probably leave, because now that you have it bouncing back into you, you can get your reset in. You probably spent a lot of resources to break that. So that's freezing in maybe a nutshell. The next state I wanted to talk about is slow pushing. And slow pushing is one where literally it's exactly what it says. Slow pushing in essence is attack the back minions, and it'll start to slow push to that side of the wave. So if I'm late game and I want to just make a very a slow push in my lane, I can blow up the back minions, rotate out, help my team, and that wave will eventually get to become enormous, right, as it slowly grows, as it walks down the wave, and potentially take some towers, take some intibs, and potentially even take core with minions out here. But also, so essentially how to create a freeze, maybe if you're not a freeze but a slow push while even you're just in lane, is say once a minion wave crashes, say underneath my tower, what's going to happen now is the wave wants to rebound, which means my minion wave will now look and have priority to win on the other minion wave. Something I didn't mention earlier is that waves are never neutral, right? They're either winning or they're losing with no outside influence. So what that means is my wave is either pushing into me, or my wave is pushing out into the enemy offlaner. So when that wave is coming into me, obviously my wave is losing. When it comes underneath my tower and it's big enough, it will create a rebound, which now it is now walking is going to be walking into the other enemy team. And what I can do here is I can slowly build up my minions, because minions hurt, right? So think of minions as another player in your lane, that you have to play around, especially in off lane. And if you do not respect a slow push, then you will not be able to play the game, just quite frankly. Because if you walk up to a slow push and you don't have an advantage, you don't have, maybe a long range way to clear that wave, that enemy can just walk at you. They have a minion wave advantage. Those minions will roast you, and 9 times out of 10 you are not able to do enough damage to output more than him and 2 waves of minions, especially in the early game. And this is also a big reason why it's super strong. And what you're able to do is, when you do get a slow enough push, and say you're able to get 2, 3, maybe even 4 waves underneath the tower, this forces the enemy to react to it. They have to sit there, they have to get that minion gold, they have to get that XP, otherwise they are drastically behind. But that also now is another way, kind of like in fast pushing, to be able to rotate out. This gives you a lot more time to rotate out, and gives you maybe more, priority to create something onto the map. And that's why I feel like slow pushing is super strong. Even if you're maybe a little bit behind in your matchup, if you have a strong wave, a huge wave, you can potentially, fight that out. Also gives you some really good ability to rotate out and just be able to help your team. Another thing that you could obviously do in these types of situations is also tower dive. Tower diving can be a little interesting, but typically you'll want to tower dive when you know that enemy is going to lose a lot of gold. You kind of understand with a tower dive that you'll probably trade, both of your lives, but you get more value because if you take them off of the map while there's 3 lanes underneath their tower, those 3 waves won't be there by the time they get back, and that will be all golden experience that they have missed. Whereas you've already gotten all that golden experience from the waves that you pushed in, you've now gotten a kill, and if anything, you've gotten a fast back in the lane to start getting yourself big again. The last topic I'll talk about is rotations, but also with the rotations, I'm gonna add in just item spikes, and I think this goes into matchups, but understanding your character. So I'll gotta get into some of maybe just quick little tips and tricks, some thoughts at the end, so that y'all can incorporate those into your game as well. But with rotations, what does a rotation mean, right? Hey, I'm rotating out because I see something in which I need to go help, right? Or, I can't remember the actual term for this, but kind of like what I was talking about with a slow push. If you're able to get a, big wave under tower, you're able to rotate out, and find more value on the map. You probably won't get that much value trying to sit underneath the tower line, get something, right? So in that regard, it could be invading the enemy 3 or 5 camp in offlane. It could be rotating into mid and finding some value there. Maybe it's helping secure double river buffs, and helping your mid laner out with that rotation. Or maybe it's just, hey, I see a fight going on at mini or at Fangtooth or at mid or in their enemy jungle, and I'm looking to rotate into that fight to then create more value across the map. Typically you don't want to leave your lane as an offlaner until you're getting like your T2, and that's just because you want to be as big as possible before really stepping out into the other side of the map. Typically with this too, offlaners are the biggest characters on the map, especially early game. They're getting the most gold, they're getting the most XP. So even if you may be losing your matchup in offlane, when you rotate out, especially early, you will be probably the biggest person in those team fights to be able to help really influence your team and probably sway them in the correct direction. Another big thing is I share kind of how to rotate when you're in a winning position. Obviously when you're stronger, when you have a person pushed in, yeah, you can obviously rotate then, but I would say you can also rotate when that enemy is in the lane. So say if I'm losing my matchup and say they've already taken my T1, or they just have so much pressure and I can't really do anything, just because of the nature of Offlane, how they've essentially rolled. Maybe it's a winning matchup that they have somewhat of a lead in. You can actually look to say, hey, look, I can sack this T1. Let me go to this first Fang 2. That's a huge trade, right? Cool, they get T1 there, but you just helped your team secure a Fang Tooth. Maybe you got 1 or 2 kills that now puts you in a position to actually be able to fight that enemy. And this is goes back to it, right? Hey, I'm trading something, right? My enemy offlaner wants to be there. He wants to be able to get gold. He wants to be able to do this. But what does he also want to do? He also wants to deny me from getting anything I can get. So if I'm able to rotate out, get some value elsewhere, and be able to meet my wave underneath my tower when it comes to me, I get the most value for my time spent on the map. And that's kind of just like very, very simple. That's what I've learned in terms of rotations. This is something that I'm still learning 100%. I'm not, once again, the best player by any means, but these are just things that I'm learning, things that I'm seeing as I play the game. And one of the things I have been working on is just rotations, and I've probably been rotating a little bit more than I should recently, but those are kind of like those key things to value. So Reaper came in my stream one day and I asked him, hey, how do you know when to rotate? What does that look like? And his biggest thing was, you want to rotate where you get more value for rotating than you would staying in the lane. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get more value from rotating than staying in a lane where there is an individual who is 2 levels up on you, shoving your wave under tower, because the only thing you're going to get is that XP that you could ultimately come back and get when you're back in the lane. Anyway, another tips, just as we get into it, that's kind of it for that last point. Just rotate out. If you're strong, rotate out. If you're weak, rotate out. If you have the ability to completely destroy your offlaner, obviously stay there. Get as much as you possibly can on that right side of the map or that left side of the map if you're the strong offlaner, because pretty much you are pushing them into a corner as well. So if you're winning, probably don't rotate out as much unless there's like very, very key team fights that you want to be able to get. And if you are losing, I would say rotate out probably a little bit more. But you also want to find those opportunities where you can, get your T2 and walk that. And some other things that I'll share that I've learned over the time in terms of just tips are, number 1, respect level spikes, especially early. Levels give a lot of stats. So almost like items worth of stacks. So respect spikes, especially at level 2. A level 1 is always going to lose to a level 2 character every time. It's just how it works, and some characters have stronger level 2s than others, so be very, very wary of them, especially in your matchups. Number 2 is understand your power spikes in the offlane. For instance, I play a lot of Shimbi. Shimbi does not come online until she gets at least 1 item, sometimes 2, depending on the character that she's up against. So with that said, I need to understand that and know I need to maybe keep my trade short, maybe understand when I can go all in. And not to say that you can't just not play the game before those moments, but you have to understand your strengths, your limitations. And when you do get your power spikes and you understand them over another characters, when you can push your lead, right? If I'm a Shimbi and maybe I have been having to play a little bit more passive, but now that I have Megacosm, I have my first item, they still have 2 tier 2s, but I kind of have a green light now that I know I can probably walk at this individual. So that's another big one as well. Another tip I'll add is around last hitting minions and understanding sometimes when it is okay to give up minions so you don't take a bad trade and ultimately lose more minions for it. So with that said, right now last hitting, the threshold for an execute on minions is 20% of their health. As long as you auto attack them in that range, you should get the kill. I believe abilities will work on it as well. 9 times out of 10 abilities hit harder than your autos anyway, so they should be securing that as well anyway, except maybe like level 1 where you may need to wait just a little bit longer, especially with their thresholds being at 20%. My point is, it's very obvious when you can easily get these last hits on minions, and this is your primary resource for gold. which is going to be important for you later on. Levels are important, I think the most important in offlane early, but obviously you're going to need gold to continue to scale and continue to get stronger throughout the game. So making sure that you're on top of last hits is going to be huge. I've heard the goal is 10 CS a minute, so obviously always strive to go for that as at least a barometer of where you need to go and maybe something that you need to work on. Along with last hitting, one thing I'll add, especially with the offlane, is kind of going back to the fact that it is a small snowballing lane. It is a lane where trading matters a lot. Say, for instance, kind of like what I was talking about earlier about in slow pushing, there's a slow push going on, and there are last hits going that I may not possibly be able to get without taking a really bad trade. Say 25% of my health bar for maybe 1 or 2 minions, or whatever that trade would look like, where you feel in your soul, hey, if I walk up to this, it's probably not going to be a good idea, but I really want this 1 minion. It's probably, hey, back off, wait. And that's because offlane is a role of, hey, you kind of take turns when you're farming. You kind of respect when that person's slow pushing, especially when you're even. You have to respect it. Obviously when the scales start to tip one way or the other, it's, you can kind of just walk at people. So you have to be very wary of that. But that's also why if you put these in early, if you understand this from minute 1, you should be able to trade in a way where you stay even enough in the lane to be able to fight, respect waves, and ultimately take your turns, being able to get your last hits and farm up to get to the mid and late game. With that said, there are some offlaners that have some really good clear from afar. So I guess in particular, this is something I've learned playing a lot of Shimby. But if, say, you're queuing the wave, you have to understand your Q is doing damage the entire wave. And if I'm in a losing matchup, where right now, like, I haven't been able to, I may be a little bit behind, it is really bad for me to just continue queuing the wave unless I'm getting every single last hit correctly. And you can get it, but it has to be timed properly. But it's usually sometimes a lot better to just allow that wave to push into you. Even though it feels like, hey, yeah, I'm getting last hits, I'm getting them from afar, sometimes it is just better to let it crash so you can get all of it, versus maybe the couple that you feel like you're getting, and ultimately still leaving the lane in a position that is favorable for your opponent. Another quick tip on where you can grab some more gold is under towers. Towers actually give you local gold. So if you are under the range of a tower, it gives an extra 300 gold, and it shares it between the heroes that are there. So if you are the only one there, you get a huge chunk of 400 gold, and it slowly diminishes evenly as there are more individuals underneath that tower. So yeah, just respecting levels, respecting item spikes. Once again, the offlane is a snowball lane, so if somebody has an advantage, they are going to be looking to stat check you, right? They're going to ego check you and say, hey, look, I am better than you. That is just what that looks like. It can be kind of annoying, but it's just the nature of the offlane. But we have fun over there. So that is all I have for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. Once again, if you guys haven't already, go ahead, follow me on Twitch, subscribe, and go ahead and like this video here on YouTube. I'm gonna be looking to bring you guys some more content as we continue to grow here. But I appreciate everybody. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.